Folks, thank you. The session today was going to be led by Izelle Fenter, but I'm just going to step in a little bit until Izelle joins us. AI is, of course, a major revolution in the world, and AI is shifting the world of media significantly. And we've been advised to see AI as an assistant, as a thought partner, and as a time saver. And we've been cautioned on authenticity, privacy, ethical issues, bias, and narratives. However, it's clear that pretty much you're damned if you don't when it comes to AI. And I'm always kind of thinking that through. Izelle may still join us later, but there we are. Fantastic. And we can hand over to Izelle. Thank you very much, please.
Thanks, Francois. Let's hope the rest is more indicative of the power of technology. So, yeah, I thought, as you just said, that when it comes to AI, you're certainly more damned if you don't. And I always thought these were the wise words of Homer Simpson. And then I checked on AI and it said, no, it's rather Mark Twain's words. And I'm quite happy about that because I think it's a probably more suitable start to an academic panel discussion. So my name is Izelle and I head up a division within Media24. This is South Africa's largest media company. We focus on TV and video and audio, and I live and work in Cape Town. But more important are the three experts we have here today, and they all have hands-on AI experience. Joey is with ArcXP, a company that assists top brands like Reuters and the Washington Post with AI innovation. And he lives in Washington and also worked for the Washington Post. Alexandra, or Dr. Alexandra, is from Munich, and she is a media leader with a wide range of media clients who she aims to help thrive. She led a recent report published by the European Broadcasting Union titled Trusted Journalism in the Age of Generative AI. And 40 media experts from all over the world contributed to this report. Clare is a former BBC journalist who has worked with diverse media companies and is now a reporter for Northwestern University's Generative AI in the Newsroom site. And she is part of your cohort. So I think we can kick off with questions. Is everyone okay with that? Yep. Joey, you compare AI to when apps launched. I thought that was very interesting just to get our heads around all of this. And initially, the app scramble wasn't very useful, but now created a whole new economy. What is success of AI tools in media environments currently? And where do you think this could end for media companies?
So why I really compared it to apps is because well, first off, there's really pretty major platform shifts in technology about every 10 to 15 years that may be accelerating a bit now, especially with AI. But when apps really came out and with the iPhone, you kind of develop your own apps. They were just apps built into the phone, did basic things, email, etc. Then the apps were launched. You could develop apps, and it was difficult. Not as many people were familiar with the coding language behind it, the design style, the process, etc. And it was fairly expensive. And a lot of apps weren't very good. They were like the flashlight app and the I'm Rich app and the beer drinking app and things like that. But then it evolved, and you started to see more like good use cases. And then there was a further step function of then, yes, new economies were created. You had like Uber and Lyft, the gig economy, news apps started to launch, and people started to get more familiar with it. And it was understandable why it was valuable to news organizations, but not overnight. Like many people think a lot of it was overnight success, but it took a long time. I mean, the iPhone itself took a long time to actually become a highly sold unit. And I feel like AI is somewhat in the same vein, only everyone has access to the same technology. I mean, even if, you're not building the models, like my team could build something that's probably just as powerful as something Google or Meta or whoever could build, beyond the foundational models. And I think that's really exciting because the barrier of entry is low. So it's a fun time to experiment.
Okay. Well, that is actually very interesting. Claire, maybe you can answer the next one. Experimentation with AI tools seems to be the current mantra. If you speak to anyone, they say, try, play, experiment. Do you agree with that? And what are the benefits if you do agree?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Was that for me? Or Jerry?
Yes, Claire, you can go.
Oh,
I asked you. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've had the benefit of being in a very fortunate position of being in companies where they have allowed for experimentation. So I was at News Labs, which was the BBC's experimentation area, where we didn't have any expectation that the prototypes that we made would go into production. And that was key to experimentation. It's genuine experimentation. And this is what Lucy mentioned earlier, is it's so important to have fund owners who are going to fund. So in this case, BBC is publicly funded, who are going to fund experimentation. If you are asking for experimentation with outcomes, with outputs, with for example, cost cutting in a business, it's not experimentation, it's business as usual. And that's key when you're thinking about AI. If you say, yeah, you can experiment with this and I want to see what there have to be for example, you have to write stories quicker, then that's not an experimentation phase. So I do think experimentation is important, but it's costly, and we've got to be honest about how much it costs. And there's a danger sometimes with the AI saying, "Oh, just play around with it." Sounds like there aren't many costs, it's quite cheap, but actually you need, when you're playing around with AI, you also need to evaluate, and that's a really key part within newsrooms at the moment. You need to evaluate the output to see if it is of the quality that you want, and that takes time, and it takes people who are expert in that field to properly judge the outputs.
Okay. Joey, you were nodding your head quite vigorously. What do you have to add something to that?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. But and I love the point of that experimentation is expensive. But that's how we've gotten to where we are with our AI tools, is rapid experimentation. But knowing when to kind of give up and bail in certain spaces. But we didn't actually really start, I guess, coding for better part of a month. While we took the time to form our kind of ethical approach, the values we were trying to provide, problems we were trying to solve, speaking with customers. So we had really good information into the experiments. So we're not just, taking shots in the dark. And the bulk of the work is still just pure engineering a lot of times and like normal product development. But the only way you're going to learn right now is by experimenting and reading what other people are experimenting with.
Okay, thanks, Joey. Alexandra, when we chatted, you said to me you feel quite strong that AI needs to be included and aligned with the strategy of the company. Can you expand on that? And also in the light of what was just said, is experimentation part of the strategy, or is it a prior to implementation into your strategy?
Yeah, thanks. And I have to add that the news reports are focusing on news, and they are based, they're qualitative research based on structured interviews with media leaders and AI experts from all over the place, not only public service, but also commercial media. And actually strategy is key. And I'm currently working on a follow-up report that's scheduled to be published in April. And what I can find from last year's research to this year's research, actually, many media organizations have taken the step from the phase of experimentation that was talked about just now to the phase of strategy. And it's really, really, really key to figure out what you want to actually achieve with AI. So it's not just doing it for the sake of it and for the AI, because so many things are possible with AI, but going back to your very mission and vision, what you're there for to do, in the news case, to deliver first-class, high-quality journalism, and really putting the journalism front and center again, in addition to all the like efficiency improvements and the back office stuff that's happening at companies. And I observe that really that strategic approach has taken hold in many companies who were last year just in this like, oh, let's see what can be done, and oh, is this exciting and it can be experimented with. The experimentation is still going on, but it also has a huge part of the reason is also an education effect in media companies, because obviously it's very important to bring everyone on board. You might lose people here or there on the line, but to really teach people what are the opportunities, the possibilities that they can that they can use with AI, and what are the limitations. And everyone says it's only when you play around with these things that you actually understand what they're able to do, and you understand the shortcomings. That said, the aspect of bringing people to experiment, actually, in the beginning, I thought, being from a newsroom background myself, having spent decades in newsrooms, I felt like, oh, this is probably the hardest part, bringing people into the game. But what I find more and more when I talk to people, it's like, oh, it's actually much harder to deal with the front runners who use all kinds of tools and all kinds of AI to do all kinds of things that we really don't want them to do. And so we're really at that stage where really it's a lot of management needed to really channel this AI effort into something productive that actually serves audiences. And this is connecting to what Lucy said earlier. It always needs to be there for a purpose to serve particular audiences. Otherwise, it's just expensive and it's just a waste of money, apart from the education aspect.
So most of us are fortunate enough to be part of organizations that drive AI and see this as the key future strategy. What about organizations or people listening in that aren't part of such organizations and they're lagging behind? Either what would your advice to them be as an individual, or how to drive change or culture within that institution? Claire, can we start with you?
I currently working on the generative AI in the newsroom site for Northwestern University, and their aim is to work out when and when not to use generative AI. And I believe there's the way we help these organizations is by the organizations who are experimenting and trying out generative AI, specifically newsrooms. I think they should be transparent about what they've done, what hasn't worked, why it hasn't worked, so these organizations that don't have so many resources can learn from them. And I'd really encourage, I think at the moment, I'd really encourage collaboration between newsrooms and transparency so that we can all come along together. I don't really think we're in competition for this purpose. So yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Okay, Joey, what is your advice besides phoning ARC XP?
So, well, I mean, it's been a long road for ARC XP. We do have, a unique benefit, which I realize is a bit of a luxury of, having a world-class publication like the Washington Post as part of our company. And we have, more than 120 customers around the world for ARC XP. So it allows us to collaborate and give that feedback. Our customers are doing their own experimentation, AI development that they'll, talk to us about. And the Post is doing its own AI development that we get to collaborate on and learn from each other. And that's very key to, what works, what doesn't work. Like a big thing for ARC was like picking what we were going to do and what the Post was going to do. And the Post really started more from the reader-facing side of AI And ARC really started more from the internal kind of workflow space within our tools to kind of meet in the middle, which is where we're getting to now. And there's learnings all along the way that we can share out, and we're fairly public about, because like I said, is a lot of the AI tools, access to different AI APIs and apps and programs, etc., are open to everybody. It's just, how are you going to use them, and how are you going to learn from them? And you can do a lot without knowing how to code. And so you don't necessarily have to have a huge CMS platform to do innovative things and solve problems for your newsroom.
Okay. Alexandra, you have worked with many people and helped, I loved your thing on LinkedIn, help the thriving. Can you give us an example where you really saw AI make a news organization thrive?
Maybe that's a big word, making a news organization thrive. I can tell you
these days,
some
yes.
experiments
but where AI made a big difference.
Some experiments that have worked with some people I've been interviewing, and we will publish quite a few use cases in the report, and we published 15 in the previous report that is out there now. Let me mention just a couple. There's, for example, and since I'm sitting here close to Munich, the Bayerischer Rundfunk, the Bavarian Broadcasting, which is also public service media, they developed a tool to moderate comments. And I mean, everyone knows that it's really, really hard to moderate comments in the background. It takes a lot out of the moderators, and actually they've developed a tool that really helps to do that in the background, and to really summarize stuff, to sort stuff, to structure stuff, because AI is actually good in structuring. So it's really cut down on their workload on moderating, and also they are working on really doing something public facing that will help people to have a constructive debate, and to have these comments being much more constructive. What I'm also impressed with is what the Netherlands public service organization NPO does, and in fact they have an avatar focus group, because focus groups are really expensive, also difficult to organize, to get people in there, but you need them also to make sure, and particularly as a public service provider, that you have a variety of perspectives. So they really created that focus group to really make sure that they cover different perspectives, which will be even more important. And a third case that I just talked about with someone now is from Radio France. And this is something bringing actually very making the connection to the audience. They ran in 40 local newsrooms all over the country. They actually asked, what kind of questions would you ask your prime minister? And then an AI analyzed all the responses of listeners and structured them. And a little bit later, actually, Radio France had an interview with the prime minister. And so they were able to actually ask him questions from all over the country. So this is really improving the news experience. It's improving the connection to local audiences. So I've been really impressed with that.
Fantastic. We hear the phrase, you need to train your assistant quite a lot, like train your dragon. Joey, what does that mean practically? I mean, I've told you before that I was quite disappointed with a specific tool that we acquisition, and you can't, it's not a magic wand that you can wave around. So training it, what does that mean practically?
So it's kind of a deep area, but I'll do my best. So first, the models have gotten a lot better. So from the early days, from even GPT-2, models are better. They're larger context windows, meaning all the text you can fit into it. So you can train it by just having really good prompts that are consistent over and over, using the same model for very specific things. So you get consistent output, but that's not truly training. That's just really consistency. For training, there's fine tuning. There's a lot of levels to that as well. And fine tuning, like we have our own fine tuning app, which is kind of telling the model really how to operate on your data. And one use case we have for it is around just tagging, because everybody uses tags different. You know, they're different types of taxonomy. And how you fine tune is you say, you know, create or recommend tags for this article, insert article, and then tell it what the tags are. So pulling from your structured data, and you do that thousands and thousands of times, and then you use that model so you get a higher degree of accuracy. So instead of just random tags that pulls from the text, which it can be pretty good at, it knows your tag library, and then instead of like 20 tag recommendations, it might do like 2 or 3. And we have a few customers doing that now, and that's helpful. But what's really emerging now is, and it's much cheaper, a little more flexible, are vector databases, which are essentially just a series of numbers. They're like decimals in 3-dimensional space. It tells you like how similar certain words are to each other, and then corpuses of words. So it's semantic. And you can use that as memory. And memory is helpful for training, because then you can say, do this thing like this prompt with all, but leverage this vector database of all of my content and all of my structured data. So say I'm asking for recommended tags, find every story that's similar, extract those tags, and return those tags. And this is critically important for agents, AI agents, and agentic workflows, and your own content. So like the Washington Post's Ask the Post it's called a RAG, or real-time augmented generation, meaning that it's pulling from all of the stories that are vectorized. But then it is also fine-tuned to know like how it respond, summaries, length. If it's inaccurate, like it can't get a good response, then just say, I don't know. And those are more like guardrails. And that's literally everyone is learning that right now, of like, you know, it is like How to Train Your Dragon, only the dragon is invisible and in a box somewhere else, and the dragon's changing every 6 weeks.
Yeah. That's interesting. In terms of the effort and the time, and I loved what Claire said initially, it's expensive and it takes effort. We need experts to help us in newsrooms and media organizations get this right. Where do we find AI experts? Claire?
Where do we find AI experts?
On LinkedIn.
Well, you know, I can talk from personal experience about how I ended up from a journalist in going into applying generative AI with software engineers at first. And that's because the BBC had this experimentation lab, news labs, where they asked what they call domain experts in software engineering, the people who understand the domain. So in this example, I understood journalism because I'd been a journalist for 15 plus years, bringing those people in and then teaching them how to work with software engineers, teaching them how, giving them time to play with generative AI tools within the framework of understanding their own, for me, editorial guidelines. I'd had the BBC's editorial guidelines kind of drilled into me over 15 years. So I could play around with, for example, we were playing around with GPT-3 before ChatGPT came out, and no one really cared at that point apart from us. And then November 2022 happened, and then suddenly the senior leaders cared about generative AI because it engaged them, because they could use it. They didn't need to be able to code and clip in there and to connect it up to anything. They could just use the chat interface. So they were engaged suddenly. But what had happened previously is that I had already been working in a team which allowed me the space and time to gain that knowledge, not just of generative AI tools, but working with different types of people. So this is one of the challenges in journalism, is you work mostly with journalists, and journalists work in a interesting way compared to other parts of the I think someone else got their mic on, other parts of the workforce. So so that's, I mean, if you were looking forward to the next, if you were looking forward to the next big thing, the next big technological change, then you have to say, if you're looking 20 years on, then you have to build these opportunities for people, domain experts. Perhaps if you take from this one, how did I end up in this situation? Domain experts to work with technical experts.
Okay.
But I don't know where do you find the other? Okay, so there are some other places that I go to. Newsroom Robots, presented by Nikita Voy. She brings on loads of different people. She was also led the AI Journalism Fellowship I did at in New York at Fake Newmarket Journalism School. So the people who have done that fellowship include the head of AI at Der Spiegel, the head of AI at The Economist. Then you've got LSE has a Journalism AI Fellowship also, which I've also done, and that's where you work in a team or a cross disciplinary team, across newsrooms to work on a product. So I guess you'd look at the alumni of that course also. And also the people.
That's great advice, Claire. Thanks. We unfortunately need to start wrapping up. Alexandra, I've got a quick question for you. It's not a quick question, just in highlights. This is, when we spoke the other day, you said, you know, all the ethical issues, the authenticity around journalists, AI-created news. Do you think our audiences are going to understand the difference between AI-generated content and originally generated content that is supported by AI? And is it going to be a difference? Aren't we going to eradicate ourselves?
It really depends on the content. I mean, I've talked a lot about that issue. What are the core values of journalism, and what's the kind of human piece in the journalism that can't be replaced? And obviously, if it's just a quick news piece, I mean, we don't need to kid ourselves. Even currently, lots of these quick news pieces are sort of copy and paste, and they're not really having a soul to them. And I guess audiences won't really recognize how different, if that's produced by AI or by a human. What is different is a debate about human voices versus voice cloning, and there the opinions are actually very much split. There's a bigger sample of people saying, like, the human in the voice is really crucial, and people don't like AI-generated voices, and the human part of it will be the future. So news is not only the piece of information, the fact, but it's also the human delivery, and journalism will be the thing for human delivery. There are others who say voice cloning is so convenient, it will just happen. And someone said the other day he's working for a public service organization, and some people shouldn't be in front of a microphone anyway. Please forget about that. So really, I think there will be a lot of artificial voices, but I'm not sure you can really sell that or make people trust it. Actually, from surveys, from research, people tend to say when there's labels, when they're like, oh, this is actually helped by artificial intelligence, whatever, people don't trust it too much. They actually get angry at people. That's what I was told by news leaders, except for only if they realize that it is helped by AI. Actually, I talked to someone from an a big insurance corporation the other day, and he said it's also about the wording. When they said, like, oh, this claim was processed by AI, then customers got angry and called up and said, I want you to do this again. And then they said, this was done by a robot, and then people were okay with it. So let's see. This will really this will really develop, and actually there's also, we need to experiment with that in the industry. What kind of labels build trust? Maybe some labels destroy trust or diminish trust. So this is really a big a case for experimentation also.
Okay, thanks, Alexandra. We need to finish. I'm going to ask you all one question, so you just have a single answer. You can either answer the question, your top prompting trick or your favorite AI tool. Let's start with you, Joey.
My favorite AI tool is it's a desktop app called Anything LLM that allows you to have infinite, like, customizable versions of ChatGPT.
Okay, great. You up next, Claire.
I like something really simple, which is extracting text from pictures on ChatGPT.
I love that. Alexandra.
I'm absolutely boring, and that's what many newsroom readers tell me also, that the boring stuff is actually the most efficient, and this is really transcribing stuff and translating stuff, because working within different cultures and different languages, it saves you so much time, and it's also getting really better and better as we speak.
Thank you so much, Joey, Alexandra, and Claire. I learned a lot from you, and it was, I wish we had more time. Thank you, Francois.
Thank you so much, Izelle. Thank you all. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that conversation, and I'm hoping that we will all continue this and reach out to each other, LinkedIn, join the next forum, and there's obviously a lot to talk about. And of course, we're very much looking forward to Alexandra's new report when it comes out in April. Thank you so much. For that, we are going to just take a few minutes break, and then Alison Gao is going to join us again for the final panel of this afternoon's session. Thank you again.